Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host tonight. I am the Assistant Director of NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, North Carolina. I'm glad y'all are here. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations and building community around the topic of mental health. Last week, we talked about how a person can reconnect with the community after incarceration. Tonight, we'll be talking about mass incarceration and racial trauma. As we discussed last week, the United States keeps 2.2 million citizens behind bars on any given day. These prisoners are disproportionately Black and Latino to a lesser extent. And the system is really stacked against them on every level. Despite similar rates of drug use, Black folks are nearly 4 times as likely to be arrested for marijuana use, according to the government's own figures. That's the U.S. Sentencing Commission. Black males are often given longer sentences for similar crimes to their white peers. Many of those locked up should be receiving treatment in the community. A study from the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics found that more than half of all inmates have a mental health diagnosis. And if you don't have one going in, you're probably going to be struggling during and after your term. So yeah, clearly racism is a mental health concern. We know that racism causes trauma for these and many, many other reasons. Mass incarceration certainly causes trauma, and trauma, we know, paints a straight line to mental health conditions. That means we need to talk about it here on Thursdays with NAMI and anywhere else. Now, if you want to talk about how do we change these larger injustices, how do we tackle the issue directly, rather than focusing on the mental health aspect, please reach out to our policy director. He can help you research the issue. He can help you be an advocate for this specific issue. And our gentleman on the panel can do so as well. But Ashish's contact is ageorge, AGEORGE at naminc.org. You can also find him through our website, naminc.org. All righty, for tonight's program, we're looking at the impact of mass incarceration on mental health and how folks can reclaim their lives on the outside. I'm thrilled to have an awesome panel of men who are out there making a difference on the front lines. All of them work at the Alliance of Disability Advocates, NC, wonderful partner for NAMI. We have Sharif Brown, Wayne Bell, and James Smith. We'll be hearing from them in just a few moments. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview with our guests. Partway through, we'll show an interview of the week, and then we'll spend time taking questions from you, members of the virtual studio audience on Zoom and Facebook Live. Now we're going to have a quick word from our sponsors. Thursdays with NAMI is funded in part by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Use Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Block Grant Fund. All right, without further ado, again, our panelists, we have Sharif Brown, the Reentry Program Manager at the Alliance of Disability Advocates, NC. With him are the members of his team, 2 community inclusion and reentry specialists, Wayne Bell and James Smith. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see you here. Thanks for spending your time with us tonight. And we'll start with a general question. We always like to know the background of our guests, what brought you here tonight. Tell us about yourselves in a nutshell. And Sharif, would you like to start?
Sure, that's not a problem. I'll definitely start. As you alluded to, my name is Sharif Brown. I am a transplant New Yorker, born and raised in Flushing, Queens, New York, in an urbanized area or the projects or the ghetto or the hood or any kind of negative vernacular you want to attach to that area. Born and raised during the crack epidemic, seen a lot of racial discrimination when it came to how police were handling individuals in my area and in my neighborhood and with my peers and my friends. Have a lot of peers that are doing long stints of incarceration due to drug dealing and other illegal activities. Have a brother that did 20 years of incarceration off and on upstate New York. in 2 maximum level security facilities. Moved to North Carolina probably 8 years ago, father of 5, 4 living children. Been with ADA since 2016, probably the only still certified travel training instructor in North Carolina. Began doing reentry with ADA in 2017, but we'll get more into all of that as we go along. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. Well, thanks, Sharif. And Wayne, would you tell us about yourself?
Certainly, I was born in Newark, New Jersey, raised here in North Carolina, been in the military, spent 3 years in the military, Army, retired from the United States Postal Service. I've been in prison ministry for over 20 years. Been at ADA almost 2 years now. I'm living in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and I am a travel trainer, certified peer support specialist, and a community inclusion specialist.
All right. Welcome, Wayne. It's good to meet you. And James, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was born in Lombard, Scotland County. I was raised in Robertson County. I have 4 kids. I'm married. Have a home in Wake Forest, Youngsville now. I have been previously incarcerated, so I have lived life experience inside of the penitentiary. I'm a RAP facilitator, NCI instructor, community inclusion specialist, peer support specialist, substance abuse, registered substance abuse counselor, and I'm a travel trainer as well. I have been at ADA going on 4 years. So I'm here, I'm back again, ready to enjoy this session with NAMI.
Wonderful. And a RAP facilitator, that's the RAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, is that correct?
Yes, and instituted by Mary Copeland. If anyone not familiar with Mary Copeland, yes. Yeah, I love her story. Yes, ma'am.
Great. And that's a great tool for anyone who doesn't know on how to plan your needs and wants should your mental health deteriorate. Who's going to watch your dog? What meds work for you? What are you allergic to? That's a great skill.
Yes, it is.
All right. Awesome. Well, we're off to a good start. Each of you has accomplished a lot. What are you proud of?
James, I'll let you go first. Let's answer the questions in the opposite order.
Okay. I'm proud of being able to stay clean of substance. I'm proud. I mean, that was something that was a miracle. You know, I'm proud that I'm clean. I don't do drugs anymore, and I'm free. I lived prison life my whole life, and now I'm free.
Well, good for you. I'm in AA too. Few years of sobriety under my belt, so it's a big turning point.
Yes, for myself, I'm also grateful to be drug-free and very proud to be an advocate. And I guess I'm very proud to be a great-grandfather.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
How many great grandkids are there?
1 is enough.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Wayne just showed your age just now with the great grandchild. That is okay.
But I'm proud of that too. I'm proud of my age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I was going to allude to.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm definitely proud of is the fact that I'm actually still breathing. Coming from an environment that I came from, the average age of life was about 18. So I'm happy that I'm proudly, hopefully, God willing, if I make it next month, I'll be 45, which is a really, really big number. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I work for an agency that allows me to actually be able to freely assist individuals without any barriers. And I'm really, really proud of my team, because if it wasn't for the 2 other individuals on this panel with me, there's no way that this reentry program will be as successful as it is. And I'm thankful that I have two passionate individuals that understand the end game of this process and understand the barriers and the challenges that we're going to go through trying to achieve that goal. But I've never seen two more dedicated individuals ever. So I'm thankful for my team, honestly.
Thank you, Sharif.
Thank you, Sharif.
That was pretty moving. You all mentioned things that are personal accomplishments that took a lot of emotional work that, you know, some might call it a spiritual journey. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths, but that was a really beautiful answer. All of you, I can see why you're good at what you do. All right, so this is to all of you too. For Black folks, BIPOC, meaning Black, Indigenous, and persons of color, for young folks, it really must take a toll to watch television, streaming service, and see people who look like them portrayed as criminals. It would have to hurt a lot to see a dad or a brother go to prison. What does it do to a young Black person, to their mental health, to get that message from the world that people like you, Black males in particular, are dangerous?
Well, I would definitely say, as a family member of watching an individual go back and forth to prison, it fractures the home, first and foremost. And it's draining emotionally, it's draining physically, it's draining emotionally, it's draining spiritually to have someone that's incarcerated and not knowing whether or not they are safe, whether or not knowing, you know, if they're going to be able to live to see another day. So that's always going to be an issue. As far as the mistreatment or the unfortunate depiction of Black men and Indigenous individuals when it comes to the public, it hurts seeing us gunned down in the streets like we're animals. And it hurts not seeing any justice done for those individuals that look like us when it comes to the justice system and being mistreated or catching charges that if a different race caught those similar charges, their length of incarceration would be 1/8 the amount of time that most people that look like us go through. So unfortunately, this goes and dates all the way back to the slave mentality that unfortunately America has not let go of yet. Most individuals don't know that the prison system was created right after slavery was abolished to essentially try to keep us in that slave mind state. And unfortunately, even in 2023, we still have some individuals that have that generic racism, that generational racism, and unfortunately, it's going to be continued. So it hurts seeing us mistreated. Have there been steps in progress? Absolutely. Obviously, people are not getting crosses burned on their yard and people aren't running around wearing hoods. But the scary part is that that mentality is now invisible because now no one can see it. It's not in your face anymore. So it hurts. It hurts. But I think that individuals and agencies like ours and the team that I have that are dedicated to making systematic changes, probably the best step forward as far as the process goes.
Yeah, but you make a really powerful point about how it's invisible now. I recall a friend saying to me in school, how do you fight an invisible enemy? Talking about social injustice. That's a really good point. Wayne, James?
You know, for me, I really see the profiling of it. I was caught in the middle of integration when I was in school. So I saw the transition of a Black male being the least feared walking down the street to a Black male being the most feared walking down the street. So I saw that transition, and so now I just want to be an advocate for those that have been profiled and those that didn't catch a honest deal or they didn't catch a fair trial. I'll put it that way. And just helping I guess my biggest thing now is when someone has been incarcerated and the self-esteem that has been lost and just trying to not reestablish, but establish themselves, because most of them are incarcerated at such a young age that they've never really been independent. And so helping them with things that we take for granted, like, do you have a email address? So the simple things that they need assistance with is quite overlooked.
Gotcha. Comment from the chat box from Gary, our executive director, Gary Kreitz. Brilliant insight, Wayne. So thank you for sharing your insight with us. That is powerful.
Yes, with me, I say it's more so of kind of when you're born, it's kind of like you're born into an atmosphere where you actually taught to, you have to come up from the bottom. It's like, it's in the atmosphere. It's like, someone like, it's like you're born in an atmosphere where you really don't have it's like you really don't have and it's really like this in the Black community. It's like you really don't have a fair chance, like a fair shot. From you going to school and being mistreated, it's just like you don't have a fair shot. So it's kind of like, hey, you better make it the best way you can. Like some guys breaking out of prison, they'd be like, hey man, we got to split up. That's how they always do it. They split up, but they can't catch everybody. It's kind of like that with us. With the system of the work, it's really like, have to be really a miracle, someone that's really instilling their kids, because you're fighting against so much. Even if you have family members, your parents, they grew up like this too. So even in their subconscious, they're giving you this energy as if, you're less than, because they have always felt like that. So it's kind of like you're always trying to get ahead, because you're being brought up as this, your chances are very slim. So what it does, it separates us. There's no unity in the Black community. We have this like this each one, because everyone is born with I got to make it, I got to get ahead, because you're taught that, hey, you're really nothing. You best thing you can do is get some money. So everyone is divided. This is really, it's sad to be in an atmosphere in a country like this, where I have people that have been to other countries and the atmosphere is totally different and their race is just like ours, but the whole systematic of the outlook, it breeds like equality. It's not so much, it breeds more equality, but in here, man, it's different.
Yeah, something you can feel in the energy. Did you get cut off, James, or were you finished?
Oh, no, ma'am, I was finished.
Okay. Well, and I want to say, there's a lot of, well, thank you for your courage, first of all of you, for sharing a difficult part of your experience and your story. And there's a lot of data, James, to support your comments. We know there's a school to prison pipeline. We know National Public Radio has done stories on how Black children are more likely to be suspended for small infractions in school, boys and girls. So you start out with a heavier penalty and a higher level of suspicion pointed at you, and then there's over policing of Black communities, and the numbers. It used to be true, I hope it's not true any longer, that young Black men were more likely to end up in prison than in college. And there's violence built into that fact. I hope that's not true anymore. It used to be. So thank you for your courage. And I think that it's just really powerful how you're all so well spoken and you're out there making a difference and doing right and doing well. So Sharif, you have children. How can we protect our young folks from those messages, and can we unlearn, or can we help people unlearn those negative messages, or help them get deprogrammed?
Yes, like you alluded to that, yes. And I have all sons, so it makes it even more impactful, even more important for me. I think that it has to start in the home, no matter in which direction you want to go. I think that encouraging and instilling confidence and self-esteem in my children will allow them to be able to navigate whatever kind of barriers or any kind of conflicts they might have when they go into society. As far as trying to change the message of how we're perceived, that also has to start in the home with other races that might have a adverse opinion about us for whatever reason. A lot of times, if it's not, like I alluded to, if it's not generational racism, then it's one bad incident with someone that looks like us, and then they're going to cast aspersions on all of us. So I think the only way to be able to at least try to make some kind of change, like I said, it has to start in the home, and you have to be prepared to have those tough conversations with your children and not sugarcoating everything and letting them think that everything is going to be hallmark cards and handshakes, because that's not always going to be the situation. They're going to run into individuals that are going to look at them for how they look instead of for their character or what they're bringing to whatever situation. And they're going to have to learn how to navigate around that, like I had to learn how to navigate around that when I was growing up, you know, having people grab their purses or going into a store and being followed through every single aisle or being looked at like, what is he going to hurt me? So my children are probably going to have to experience the same things, unfortunately. I'm hoping that by the time they reach that age to where they're old enough to go out on their own, my younger children, my older children are obviously out on their own, but my younger children, hopefully society will have been a little more open, have an open mindset and a little more encouraging and a little more warm when it comes to dealing with people that look different from them. So that's how I would have to approach that with my own children. And like I said, it starts in the home on both aspects of it. Because if you can't control it in the home, you cannot expect your children to learn quality things in the street, regardless of whatever race you are, regardless of whatever area you live in, regardless of whatever your background is. You're not going to be able to, you know, have some kind of quality education being in the streets unless it's going to be illegal activity, which is accessible in almost every corner, no matter where you go.
Sure. And I want to really honor your comments and your experience, and also say we need those equivalent lessons and conversations and everything in the white homes and the white parents and the white kids, and you know, we need to make those movements towards accountability and honesty, rigorous honesty, and humility, cultural humility. And I have to share, I had a partner who was a Black man, and we actually drove to a NAMI conference together in San Antonio, Texas. I drove from Ohio down to Texas, me and this Black guy. And I have never been stopped by police officers so many times in my whole entire life than I was in those 2 days of driving. It was brutal. It was weird. It freaked me out. And I just kept explaining, you know, well, we're making our way to a mental health conference and everything's fine. I'm sorry I was going a half a mile over the speed limit, and they gave us a warning more often than not. But boy, that was an eye opener. Gosh.
Trust me, it wasn't the speed you were going at. It was the person that you had sitting next to you that caused the police to continuously pull you over. Trust me, I've been pulled over. I know James has been pulled over. I know Wayne has been pulled over. And a lot of times that has nothing to do with a driving infraction. It has everything to do with either what you look like or in combination of the car you're driving. And that's an immediate red flag for the police to pull you over. Because unfortunately, the mindset is African-American men cannot drive certain cars, you know, especially if it's cars that police officer himself can't afford. And that's going to be a reason why we get pulled over every time, because they're probably assuming we're dealing drugs, we're running drugs, you know, we're doing something illegal. And it's not that. I enjoy getting pulled over because all my paperwork is legal. So I enjoy it. It's fun for me.
Well, That's why I brought that up, because it was pretty clear to me what the actual difference was. It was very eye-opening. Wayne and James, do you have comments?
You know, I was right before I joined the military. Oh yeah, I was about to join the military. I was like in this station where you were signed in to go in, and this officer came to me. He said, "Wayne Bell, where you from?" I said, "I'm right here in North Carolina." He said, "I've got this gentleman over here. This is a black gentleman. This is in 1975. This is in 1975. A black gentleman. He had just married. I'm a Caucasian lady, and he's on his way to somewhere in the east, but he's going to have to go through Smithfield, North Carolina." And so this older officer asked me, what should he do? I told him he should tell his wife to just don't be seen when they go through Johnson County. Please don't let her be seen with him. So he will automatically be pulled over.
Right. Wow.
Right.
Well, experience speaks.
It does.
That's such a sad reality. James?
Yeah, like Sharif said, I believe it starts in the home. It starts in the home, and I think, for example, I think one day I was doing something. I was me, my wife, and my daughter, and I was like, "That's the way you see that white lady." And my wife was like, "Don't say that." I was like, "What?" She said, "Because I said white lady, and we don't want our daughter to be, certain races and things like that." So it starts in the home and showing love, and I'm always, showing love and that equality, because I always put my faith on my kids. I want them to know that, hey, you render good for evil. I mean, you're going to have people that do things like this, but they're hurting people. And if they hurt you, just pray about it. Ask God to forgive them. I try to that equality, because if they have any of that bitterness in them, they're not going to be effective in the cause. They're going to be a negative. So when my wife said that, it pricked my conscience. I was like, wow. And then even after that, I noticed this about me. I may be around a lot of white people, and I wouldn't feel comfortable. Like if I be around a lot of, I no, this shouldn't be. What's in me? And it goes back to like how we was raised and things like that. So when she said stuff like that, I just began to pray about it, because I'm like, that liberty. Because I believe that if I have liberty, regardless of what someone does to me, it shouldn't make me respond outside of the person that I am. Now, whatever they do, that's going to be on them. Because I know from my experiences being incarcerated, you reap what you sow. Now it's gonna come back on you eventually. So I always, like Sharif said, I want to instill it in my home with my kids. I have older kids that I ain't where I was at now, and I have to bring it back to their remembrance, because if they don't have that love, if they don't see clearly, it's gonna affect them, because they're gonna have bitterness, and it's gonna show up some type of way. It's gonna show up some type of way. So I always want them to have that foundation of love, and that's what's going, because hey, you don't want to shun nobody because of the race of their skin, regardless if you're shunned, regardless if you're shunned, so they need to have that they need to have that foundation. They need to have a foundation with that. So they'll be good, they'll be good. Regardless of what's going on, you can't change. If you ask me, I don't think it's never gonna change. But I believe a person can live free from it. I believe an individual, if they brought up right, like Mr. Brown was saying, I believe they can live free from it. I believe they can live a life free from this stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I got a motto, I'm sure we all heard this: treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of insight and grace in those answers, and I appreciate that reminder to, if you're having trouble with someone, pray for them. And this is where I always say, if you don't believe in God or prayer, that's perfectly fine with NAMI. If you do, that's also awesome. Whatever works for your recovery and helps you do that. But yeah, I have found it really helpful personally to try and put positive energy towards people I'm having trouble with. Yeah. So next question is for Wayne, and then if you have any follow-up, James or Sharif, go ahead. But Wayne, all three of you gentlemen were featured in an article in the North Carolina Health News in September. Great story, by the way. It's online if you'd like to see it. Wayne had a quote that I just loved about helping them develop a GPS for life. Can you tell us about that, Wayne?
Yeah, this GPS for life motto is people want to know. The worst thing in the world is not to know how to get to where I'm going, to be lost. And so many people have come out of prison not having direction, not having any guidance, not having any hope. And so we are there to advocate for them, to let them know exactly where to go to get exactly what they need. So yes, this GPS for life is a system, a guidance system to help them get over some of the barriers that are in the way.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds very much like James' comments last week about having that step-by-step instruction, doing the baby steps so that it's not so intimidating.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderfully helpful thing. It's just, we all know where we want to go, but specifically in the here and now, what is my next move and how do I get there? How do I figure that out? Sharif, James, any follow-up?
I think the importance of what Wayne is talking about also is the guidance that he's talking about giving these gentlemen that we all do. It also alleviates a lot of anxiety for these individuals. And obviously anxiety and mental health go hand in hand. So knowing, because you know, a lot of things we take for granted on the outside. You know, life is hard to navigate every day in society. You know, imagine being removed or essentially unplugged from the matrix for 15, 20 years and then trying to get plugged back in with no direction. That's what that whole institutionalized thought process of, you know, I'd rather be incarcerated than be free because I'm used to my 3 hots in the cot and them telling me when I have to do this and when I have to do that. A lot of individuals fear freedom. As wild as that may sound, a lot of people that are incarcerated actually fear their release date because they know that everything that was handed to them, and you know, things aren't really handed to you in prison except obviously food in the bed. Everything else is on you, and even the food is lackluster. If you don't have commissary, you're gonna have a really hard time. So, but that little bit of security is removed when they're released. And some individuals can't make that transition. They can't make that changeover. And that's the reason why programs like this are so important. Because one, like I said, we're alleviating the anxiety. It's no more a question of, well, who do I have to go to? Where do I have to do? How much is that going to cost? Everything's lined up for them way before they get out upon wherever they're being released to. And then more importantly, it empowers them, knowing that, listen, there's somebody on the outside that's not your family, that's not your spouse, that's not your children, that actually really don't know you from a hole in the wall, but are so invested in this overall plan of trying to help everyone with their reentry that we're going to empower you to get involved in your own reentry. And then once people are bought into their own plan, more than likely they're going to follow that plan instead of us just shoving information in their face saying, hey, this is what you have to do. They've been hearing that the whole time they've been incarcerated. So kind of separates them from prison and plugging them back into real life, as scary as that may be for them at times.
Sure. And how motivating it must be to meet someone who's been there and worked with others who've been there and has actually made it. Like, wow, this is actually possible for someone like me. That's
yes,
exciting.
we have a lot of that, James. Since I'm good.
Oh yeah, like Sharif was saying, that anxiety is real. I have met guys that was when I was in there, they was getting out, and they're like, man, I'll end up coming back, man. They just, you can tell they was like, you would think they've been down for a while. You'll be like, hey, you got to get released, and they'll be fearful. That anxiety is real. And a lot of times, like we had one guy to get out, and he reoffended right then. So that anxiety is real. I mean, you can't imagine. I experienced it. I had hard times. That's why I reoffended. I had hard times. I went back. I was like, man, I ain't finna do this. I went and sold drugs. I told them, that was like, well, you ain't trying. I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. I mean, they said I got a criminal record. I can't get a good job anyway. I can make this money and sell drugs. It was like I went through that. It's real and then I didn't know a whole lot of stuff. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I felt prideful. I mean, I didn't want to feel stupid and dumb. I've been incarcerated. They've been treating me like I'm stupid and dumb. They tell me to get up from that. So they treat you like that. You can't kick back. I mean, I was actually thrown into solitary and confinement by some officers that said they did me bad, and just because I wouldn't join the gang, I resisted. But the guys that was in the gang, they was in cahoots with them. So that's all mental. That's gonna always bother people. What a lot of people go through mentally, I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, if they had someone to get out there that care, like Mr. Brown said, and invest in them, oh no, a lot of people won't go back. Because they have someone that, because especially if you know what they're going through, and you can encourage them and walk them through and show them you care. Oh yeah, it'll decrease people getting out and coming back to prison. It definitely will.
Wow. So James, you were sent to solitary confinement because you refused to participate in drugs and whatnot.
Yeah, again, yeah. Some guys wanted to do, and that was real cool with this officer, because the officer kind of broke boundaries. They got real cool with the officer, so I didn't want to join the gang. And
Wow.
So when I said no, I said the officer was coming in. I said no, they were trying to make me join the gang. I said no. They said no, be quiet. No, they locked me. They got me out of there. But I'm kind of glad they got me out of there. When I think about it, because I didn't join, I didn't agree to be with that gang. If they popped my door that morning, them guys could have came in and beat me up, all of them. So even though it happened like that with the officer, I was glad, because at my age, I was going to have to be on that floor. And if I would have went to another floor, my age group, they was in cahoots with other guys. Hey, the Smith guy, hey, get him when he get. So solitary was like us. And then there's the officer, and if the officer is in cahoots with them, you had there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind those walls. People getting money, getting paid, and you're kind of, you're gonna go through a whole lot. And I wouldn't and I was kind of like a tough guy, but you can't be kind of tough in there when everybody's it's gonna bother you mentally. It's gonna bother you mentally. I was just thinking the other day, I was just thinking about when I was it was a lot of guys came in the room, and there was one guy that wanted to beat. There was about 8 guys. So they was like beating on me. They started taking my shirt off and taking my pants. I'm like, oh no. So I'm trying to, these 8 or 9 guys, I'm trying to resist them. And then I don't know what happened. It had to be God or something. But something that was like, man, they started laughing, man, we ain't gonna mess with them. But at the same time, when I look back at my life right now, those guys could have raped me. They really could have did stuff like that. That bothers people mentally. And you think about the guys it happened to that they never tell anyone.
Right.
And I know situations like that. So you're not the same. It's you're not the same right there.
Wow. Well, it takes a lot of courage to share that, even though it was a bullet. Yeah, you can imagine the pressure, the feeling that you can't win, the despair. That's incredible. And I'm so glad you're here with us today, and that you're a whole person. Wow.
I mean, what that is, that's a problem what James was saying. What that is essentially, it's a systematical setup, because when you go into an incarcerated state alone, if you don't have any friends or anything else like that, everybody tells you the only way you're going to survive is you got to join the gang. That's the only way you're going to survive. You have to join the gang. You have to join the gang. You have to join the gang. Not recognizing that you joining the gang for safety can multiply your sentence and your length of incarceration, because there's no gang that's going to sit back, especially in prison, that are going to sit back and not be involved in something. There's going to be some politics involved. There's going to be some violence going on. There's going to be something going on the way if you get caught with a shank or anything else like that, 90 days in the SHU, which is a special housing unit or solitary confinement or anything else like that, or if you get involved in a prison fight, even if you're defending yourself in a gang prison fight and you happen to kill somebody, that's a murder charge. That's 25 more years added on to whatever you were doing before that. So it's a systematical setup. And like James said, there are a lot of guys that go in and get violated in the worst ways and never tell anyone. And they carry that with them, even when they come out of incarceration, because you have to look yourself in the mirror. And getting violated like that, you feel like your manhood has been stolen. So now when you get out, you have to prove that you're the man again. And unfortunately, you're going to do something to get you put right back in that same place where you just got violated. And now you're lost in that system forever. So James' story is, believe me, 100% authentic. Obviously, I wasn't there when he was incarcerated, but I've heard stories when my brother was telling me about what was happening when he was incarcerated. So I know it happens like that, unfortunately. And most of the times, the SEALs will turn a blind eye to it and won't even stop them at all. Because most SEALs are outnumbered 30-1 in any floor in that prison. They're always outnumbered at least 30-1. So while I get involved, I can get shanked, jumped, retaliation towards me. I'm just going to turn a blind eye to it and leave it alone. And James knows I'm telling the truth. And I've never been incarcerated. And I know what I'm saying is authentic. And James can tell you what I'm saying is authentic.
And another thing what Mr. Brown said, once you joined that gang, like if I would have joined that gang, I would have had an STD tag on me. That would have got with me when I got out of prison. So if I would have got a charge and they would have looked, oh, he's STD or he's gang related, that would have increased them giving me more time. I would have got more time. See, now if you already did a charge, and that's already bad. But if you go commit a charge and they say, well, he's gang related, oh my goodness, you're gonna get some more time. You're gonna get even more time, but they don't know you joined the gang in prison because you was pressured. You didn't want to, it was peer pressure. You feel like you had to, and that's mentally draining as well. And as well, what Sharif said, when you get like stuff like that happens to people in prison, that gets back home before you do. Or he got raped in prison, and everybody, you already know that they're talking about it in your hometown. So when you get out, you already feel like you got something to prove because you again got out of prison that you was raped in prison. So it's very like it's systematic. It's like it's systematic,
Wow, there are a lot of evil moving parts here, I gotta say. And I can't say I feel shocked by this information, but it is just hearing it firsthand and even like very close secondhand. Thank you, Sharif, for that amazing analysis that you put it very clearly. It clearly is a systemic problem, a systemic design, and it struck me as I listened to you all that the gangs tend to be race-based. So again, it's an oppression that causes more division, more violence. It continues intergenerational violence and poverty and all those things that we would, most of us want to heal our society from and our families from. A lot of burdens to be worked through here, and y'all are doing amazing work in the face of a really intense problem, a really tough, entrenched, what do they call them? Evil problems, insidious problems. Anyways, I'm amazed at your insight and all that you're bringing to the conversation, and I appreciate you. All right, let's go to the next question for James. You turned your life around after incarceration in 2016. It was your church, your sister, and the woman who would become your wife who were there for you, who led you to the path you wanted to walk. How can men build that network if they don't have a sister, a girlfriend, a church, or maybe they don't have good social skills?
That's where I think where we come involved. I think more people have the empathy towards those people and hiring people like us with live life experience. I know some more guys. They're not in this field of work, but they have lived life experience that if they could get in, and they have been incarcerated, but they're living lives as law-abiding citizens now. Those type people, they ain't Christian. They just regular people. They're not, a lot of them ain't even faith-based, but they're men that know how to get out of prison and rehabilitate yourself and get on the right track. I believe it has to be more invested. It need to be somebody got to have some money to hire people that'll do this. If people that's been like me, and like me getting out. I have a cousin. He got out of federal prison. He's doing good now. I know his past. He can greatly help somebody. He's doing good. So I think it have to be investment. If they really want to help it, get people that want to help the cause, spend the money to hire these people to go in there, to help them, help the people get rehabilitated, because they may not have no family. And like the lady said, I didn't really when I was in there, like Sharif said, they helped me when I got out. But see, I didn't have no family when I was in there. I mean, I had my sister there, but no one sent me in the commissary. I had family that loved me, but I didn't have no money. I had to eat that food. I was 100 pounds lighter than I am now. I mean, I could eat. I mean, and my wife, I met her when I got out. Like, if I would have got out and would have went back to like I was living before I went to prison, that my family wouldn't have had nothing to do with me. I got out with a mindset I wanted to change. I want to start being proactive. They said when I got out, the first place I went to go get my food stamps. I went to go get my food stamps from social services. I went and applied for jobs that was doing solar fields at that time. So I was proactive. And then what my family member, other people seen that, wow, he's being proactive about, then they helped me. I didn't really have, so my wife, I had a job doing good when I met her, when I met my wife out of prison. I was already working, I was going to church, I was doing things of that nature. But like to answer your question though, they have to hire people. They have to hire people, someone that really cares, got a track record, and they come there and tell that guy, hey, I don't have no family. They'll tell you, hey, don't worry about it. I'm here for you. I'm going to help you. And be for real about it. Just be talking like this. That's encouraging, because I can see somebody, if somebody come and tell those guys, oh no, they won't come back. They won't come back. If you found somebody that really care, like how we be working with our guys at ADA, if they find somebody that really care and show forth that love and work with them through their tempers and everything, hey, don't get sidetracked. We here for this purpose. We're here for your reentry. Now it's work and it takes passion, but if we have more people like that, oh no, it'll be, even with the mental health, all the stuff that I said that happened in prison, all the bad stuff that goes on. No, some of that stuff can really be offset if some have someone that cares and they having exposure to success. A lot of these guys haven't had exposure to success. I never had exposure to success. Once I started getting exposure to success, having a job, I ain't talking about famous, just little simple stuff. I got a car. I got exposure to, wow, man, I got a car. Man, so they got little stuff. These guys, I was like little pregnant guys that never had license, never had their own house. I always stayed with them. They never had exposure of success. They never have. Now a lot of guys, if they get that, like Wayne, I know Wayne, though, he helps a lot of guys like that as well. So yeah, that's what they need. They just need people that care, people that care and work with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they get the connection, the emotional connection, the support. They can tell it's sincere, and they see, all right, there's the path. This guy has walked it. All right. So what else is effective in your work with Black men to help them overcome barriers to reentry? And any of you can take that.
Like I said, what I do, I always want to always encourage them. A lot of stigma as I get thoughts from them, I always encourage them, and a lot of a lot of times I hear preconceived assumption thoughts that they have. I can't get a job because I got a felony and all these things. I always downplay stuff like that because that's not true. There's opportunities out here. I'm always encouraging, and I may not tell them directly, but I'm always encouraging it. I'm always doing that. That's how you really offset, because there are a lot of mental. This is the mental aspect. We're not therapists. But this is
Right.
the mental aspect of it. You
Mhm.
already, it's a train of pattern of thought is negative towards yourself, that when we work with these guys, we're like therapists. We have to encourage them and going on the way, because they already got a preconceived assumption that they're going to fail when they get out.
I think the great thing about James is that he is a walking example. So
Mhm.
it's easy to deal with individuals and let them know, listen, it can be done. I did it. It's easy
Right.
to deal with, so being that walking, living example for these guys and actually seeing the result, because we can tell people you can do it, you can do it all day long, but actually seeing someone who's done it empowers them, like, you know what, he did it, I know I can do it, I'll put forth the effort. Now, obviously, nothing is perfect in life. So you can try to be the best peer support specialist, the best rap facilitator, give everyone the best information. But sometimes that environment that they're in sucks them back in, and then they go right back.
They become institutionalized. My very first client, Sharif had to really talk to me. He got out on a Saturday. And I tried to meet him on a Monday. By the time I got to the halfway house that he was at, he got out on that Saturday, checked himself out on that Saturday midnight, stopped in Greensboro, murdered someone, stopped in Charlotte, murdered someone, went back in, and then he murdered himself.
Oh, wow.
And so it hurt me for my very first consumer to come out and to have a record like that. But it gave me just a big picture of how serious this is. So now, as soon as I meet my consumer, I reach out to them. Most of the time, they don't reach out to you. I reach out to them to let them know that I'm here. And one of the first things I tell them is, I'm here to help you not go back to prison. That's why I'm here. That's my main objective, is to help you not go back to prison. And so when you keep it real like that before them, 90% of them don't want to go back, and they want someone there to support them and encourage them and be there for them and know that someone does care.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
the sad part about Wayne's story, that the gentleman that he's referring to had a severe mental illness diagnosis and was only 24.
Oh,
He was only 24 years old. He was so young. And who knows if someone would have got to him sooner,
Right.
if things would have ended up differently for him. But that's just the reality when it comes to mental illness and incarceration, is that there's going to be a lot of people that unfortunately are going to fall through the cracks in the system and not get all the help that they need, whether pre or post release. And unfortunately, situations like this happen to where 3 people lost their lives, and because he hung himself, I think, a week after he got rearrested. It wasn't long.
Yeah.
It wasn't long.
He just had no more hope.
Yeah.
One of the largest things too with this mental health is medication. Them not being able to get their medication when they get out is crucial. I had a lady, she's about 69 years old. She had just gotten a job working with her daughter at Burger King somewhere, but she had a job, but she didn't have any insurance. And so I'm just trying my best to get her some insurance, because I know if she doesn't get her medication, something is going to happen. The next week, a parole officer goes by looking for her, haven't seen her since. Don't know where
wow.
she is.
Oh, geez. Wow, there are so many issues to address here. That lack of health care, how easy it is for people to slip through the cracks. because we need more of each of you. We need to clone y'all and make sure that everyone has the support that they need once they're released, whether it's mental health support, job support, just independent living skills. If I've never
Right.
been on my own, how do I learn that? This is a good time for me to mention we have a support group dedicated to folks who are learning to live independently for the first time. It's on our NAMI website. They meet once a month on the second Tuesday at 7 p.m., the TCL support group, and we'd love to talk about your any mental health challenges, any independent living questions you're having. It's a perfectly confidential, all peer support group. I see it's almost 8 o'clock, which is awesome. We have until 8:30, but I don't want to run out of time. I see we've got 5 questions in the Q&A. I think I'm going to skip the video of the week. I do want to give a big shout out as we pivot to the Q&A. Thanks so much to Executive Director Gary Kreitz for helping out in the chat book and answering questions on Facebook Live. He's always there to support us and does an amazing job. Okay, so let's look at our Q&A questions. I'm not sure I understand this question. In terms of Black people being portrayed as the villain or an antagonist in television, what would you say takes the biggest mental toll for younger Black viewers? Watching someone that looks like them being portrayed in negative, stereotypical ways?
I guess I'm assuming that the question, how it was worded, was how do young Black men feel seeing someone that looks like them being stereotyped on television? Unfortunately, a lot of those stereotypes are based upon truth. And that's the sad part about it. We're stereotyped as the drug dealers on TV. That's because, unfortunately, if you go into these urbanized areas where there are no resources and there's nothing else for these young kids to do, like there's not a YMCA where they can go play basketball or get involved in sports, or there's not some place they can go swimming or something like that. The only thing that they can do is stand on the corner and sell drugs. So unfortunately, that keyhole view of the population is what society broadcasts to the majority and the masses. Because believe it or not, the majority of African-American men are not drug dealers. We're not criminals. We're not violent. We are contributing individuals in society. Unfortunately, the majority of the population don't want to hear that story. They want to see the ignorant African-American running around with a gun, going to jail, because for people that don't look like us, that kind of lifestyle is enticing to them. It's exciting. It's something that they want to emulate. For individuals that look like us that live that life or have seen that life, we know that that's not something that is fun or enjoyable. That's something that we try to escape and get out of. But TV is all about ratings. And like I said, nobody wants to hear about the positive African-American story. They want to hear about the negative stuff that goes on in these environments that for a lot of these individuals that don't look like us cannot go to that environment and actually visit and see that environment. So that's their connection to that environment, is the boob tube or the idiot box, as I call it. That's their connection to what they think the Black environment looks like. But that's why that is what it is.
And I think what you're being taught at home has a lot to do with the way you look at life. So if you've been taught at home some morals, you've been taught at home some self-esteem, honesty, some truth, when you see those type things, you say, okay, I know that's not me, and I know that's not the world I live in. But if you in a home environment where your parents are doing drugs and they're out and you don't know where they are, and maybe they don't come home 2 or 3 days, you are almost like a magnet drawn into that type of world, that type of lifestyle.
Sure. I think it's really important for anybody who grows up with some privilege to see the system, the way, the choices that are before a young man in the hood. what would I do if those were my choices and those were my circumstances? I would do the same thing. I know I would have. As a young person, I was impulsive and I wanted immediate gratification, and I would have been in the street. So I think it's really important for us to have empathy and humility and see what the system, who's really controlling the outcomes and who's really calling the shots. It's not the individuals, the boys and girls in the neighborhood. It's not the families in the neighborhood. It's something bigger.
Like Wayne alluded to, it definitely starts at home, especially for single parent households where the father's not around, or the father is incarcerated and the mother has to work 2-3 jobs, and now no one's there to watch the children. So now the street now become the parents of the children. And that's when children start to become wayward and start to get involved in a lot of illegal activity, gangs and drugs and things like that. But unfortunately, a lot of African-American men have children and they just don't want to be responsible, unfortunately. And it affects the generation, and it affects the generation after that, and it just keeps going. And until someone stops that vicious cycle, it's going to continue. And more individuals that look like us are going to be incarcerated because the streets are their parents. And like I alluded to earlier, you're not going to learn anything positive in the streets at all.
James, I feel like I should ask if you have a comment before I go to the next question.
Oh, no, yes, ma'am, you can go ahead. That was great. That's the truth of what they said. I'm in agreement with that.
Okay. What things can be done to minimize the use of solitary confinement? It is a big problem in this state.
Okay, with solitary confinement, I believe they could, from being in there, sometimes it's solitary confinement. That's going to be hard because sometimes people don't want to be on the yard for certain reasons. So sometimes I know guys, I just got my first cousin, he just got out. I'm laughing because I just see him on Facebook. He did like 14 years. And he did most of his time. He may call me and I'd be like, what you doing calling me? He'd be like, hey, he was in solitary confinement. I said, when you going on the population? He said, well, no, I don't want to go out there. I want to do my time in here. So out of his 14 years, I think he might have did 9 of those years by choice in there. So if he went in confinement, he would do something he wanted to do his time in solitary confinement. But for those, I believe that as a tool, it should be more, man. It should be more investigation into events that happen in prison. I feel that it should be more involved in the situation, because a lot of times it could simply be, don't take this guy to solitary confinement, ship him to another prison. Ship him to another prison. Get more, investigate what's going on. It's always something that led up to this. Don't throw this person in solitary confinement. Ship him to another prison. Matter of fact, ask him, what's some type of prison? Well, we can't get you at this prison. We'll send you to this. They're not getting out. Because when I was in there, guys were talking to y'all, man, I want to go to this camp. I want to go to this camp. Give the guys that are already going to be in prison, give them some liberty. If they say they want to go to Craven, let them go to Craven. If it's a bad for in Craven, let them go to Craven. Because 9 times out of 10, they know what the staff don't know. I'll be safe at Craven. Because if I'm in prison and I got a history, I know what's going on, because a lot of stuff goes that the staff don't know. So, hey, what camp you want to go? They'll say I want to go over here. They won't end up in solitary confinement because they won't have the beef. There's a lot of beef that go on, violence and stuff going on. But the institution won't allow the prisons in prison to have any liberty to choose their camp. I bet a lot of people, because you're not going to choose a camp. I have seen guys go to camps, they get off the bus, they already know they're going to the hole. Because they got somebody, they co-defended, hey, they don't set the word. You got to see him. You got to see him. It's also, when they get off, you might, dang, he just got off the bus. Oh yeah, they're in the cafeteria fighting right now. They're going to solitary. So it's like, boom, a lot of times, you got to have guys that have the liberty, and then if they tell them, well, nah, well, you got to go to Craven. So that, hey man, you go now they told me I had to go to this prison. So they, you know, they're coupled down, but the prisoners got to have some liberty when it comes to the camps they want to go to. If they give it, but they don't get it. Like the last time I was in there, I got James, you being shipped out. I'm like, where I'm in, are you going to Rayford? I'm like, okay, I ain't have no problem with nobody, but a lot of times you don't know when you're gonna get, you don't know when you're gonna get shipped out, and they're shipping you to a prison that you got some beef with, or it's more Bloods there than Crips, and you Crip, or it's more folks there. It's more folks there than Blood, and you get what I'm saying? So they don't give the guys, if they really want to cut down that solitary confinement for that happens because of violence and different things like that, give the prisoners more liberty to choose what prison they want to go to. Because I know this one thing, we got enough of them. We got enough of them in North Carolina. We got enough of them.
You know, and I know staff involvement has a lot to do with it. I've got a cousin that's in Virginia, and I'm the only family support he has. His mother and father passed while he was in prison. And last month, he called me and said, he calls me uncle. I just need somebody to talk to. I just got a new roommate, and I know I'm going confinement soon because he's trying to come in here and Bogart and take over the place. So when if they feel like they have someone that they can talk to. So he talked to me, and then apparently talked to someone in staff, and they moved that person. So when they see that there is trouble that will cause them to go to confinement, that they have someone that they can confide in, certainly would help.
And a lot of times too, when a guy, like when I wanted to go to a certain prison when I was locked up, and I wanted to go there because I heard how that camp was. I felt better. So if I want to go to that camp, but 9 times out of 10, I want to go there because, you know, I gotta I'm gonna enjoy. I hear some good things. It could be some of their programs. You know, I have seen guys like, man, you know what, man, I got to get away from this camp. Why? I'm trying to get my trade. I'm trying to get my degree. This camp don't offer that. Behind the prison walls, in some camps that offer stuff that other camps don't. So then you won't let the guy go to the camp. He done flipped out, man. I'm going to the hole, man. I don't want to be here. He gonna flip out and do something. Well, on the time you let him go to the camp, he could have got his criminal, you know, I forgot the name, one camp. It's something, but they have a lot of programs. You can go in there, you can be a brick mason, you can go, it's guys in prison that want to get the camps. These guys in prison that want to get the camps where they want to go to school. They want to get the brick mason. They want
HVAC certification.
HVAC, yep. They want shipment. Guess what he gonna do? Oh, he gonna go to solitary confinement. Because when he eventually get in a fight or something, he gonna go all out. He might shank. He might fight the police officer because he been wanting to get to another camp because it was already suppressing his feelings, but they don't hear him out.
Makes sense to me that if you send people where they want to go, you'll have less fighting, you'll have less drama, less difficulty.
Especially if it's not a bed, I can understand, but let the guy know. But we know you want to go to that camp, and it's going to be some, you know what we're going to do when a bed comes open, give them some hope.
Right.
You know,
All right. Question from Gary. My beloved city of Durham has a troubling past on race issues that still affects us today. What can we do to come to grips with this legacy and move towards a more just and equitable city? Durham, North Carolina.
I think if you're going to do anything when it comes to trying to change cities, it's going to have to start with leadership. So you're going to have to try to get with nonprofits. You're going to have to try to get with local reentry commissions that are willing to advocate for some kind of change. Go in and, you know, pick it in front of your congressman's office for some kind of logistical change, or you're going to have to, one group of individuals are not going to be to inspire any kind of real change. You're going to have to get to the higher ups. And that starts with congressmen, that starts with legislation, government, state government. You're going to have to go there, because if the state funding views that that city doesn't necessarily need funding for, let's say, certain police organizations or things like that, that might have a history of racist or intimidating tactics when it comes to people that look opposite from them. When you start hitting people in their pockets, that's when people start to wake up and they start to realize what's going on. So if you want to enact some kind of a change, you're going to have to go to your congressman and legislation, whoever the mayor of Durham is, you might want to even go to them. Whoever the chief of police of Durham, you might want to go and speak with them. But unfortunately, that's a very, very long process. Durham has been Durham for a very long time, and it's probably going to remain Durham for a very long time. But like I said, if you want to try to enact some kind of a change, you're going to have to go Congress and the legislation to try to get some kind of funding to support programs and agencies that will try to enact some kind of change or policy if you deem that you can't do it yourself.
All right. Definitely got to start at the top and get that buy-in, get a collaboration going. Wayne, James, did you have something to add?
Well, that's great. That's great. That's a great suggestion. That's great what Mr. Sharif said.
All right. Another question, are there any agencies or programs that have good success in helping incarcerated men and women re-enter? Of course, yours is at the top of the list. Any others?
That's what I was going to say. Obviously us, and that's not us being biased, but we have the numbers to prove that what we're talking about is true. We keep track of all of our guys that every referral that we receive, we track them on a monthly basis. So I would say our agency, there are a lot of LRCs that are doing really, really good work. Post-release, there are a lot of social workers doing a lot of good work re-release.
What's LRC?
LRC is Local Reentry Commission.
Gotcha, thanks.
And no, that's not a problem. Essentially, it's a collaborative group of reentry-based individuals, whether it can be employment, it can be legislation, it can be nonprofits that all come together and try to pool their resources to try to help as many people as we possibly can. You can always get involved with the State Reentry Commission. So yeah, those agencies are always good. There are some agencies that are not so much as good, but I'm not going to mention those kind of agencies, but you have to be very careful because there are a lot of agencies out there that say that they do a lot of reentry work or they want to do a lot of reentry work and then really don't do the reentry work. And unfortunately, with the population we're serving, especially when it comes to reentry, once you lose their trust, it's over. So that's why I think our program works so well. And anybody that wants to model programs similar, I think you have to be fully transparent about what you can do and what you can't do. And I think they'll respect your honesty and telling them, listen, we're not going to be able to do that, but we can do this, instead of selling them false hopes and false dreams. Because they've heard that a million times from a million people coming in promising things that they never delivered. So agencies that are transparent, that actually really care, and not just doing this for a paycheck, but actually really care and want to help individuals, I think those agencies and those programs are going to be the most successful, outside of ours, of course.
Of course. All right. Well, I definitely hearing the commitment and the caring tonight. That's coming through loud and clear. Question from Gary Kreitz, who happens to be an ordained minister. Wayne, tell us about your prison ministry.
Before I tell you about prison ministry, I want to say I lived in Durham for about 20 years, Gary, and I was on drugs before I moved to Durham, and people said, "Why are you moving to Durham and you were on drugs?" So it's really who you associate yourself with, and this, I hate to say it, in every town, in every city, is a place called a hood, and so you just learn how to live where you are, and be accountable for yourself and show be responsible for your own actions. So about the ministry, yes, I've been doing and I've did prison ministry in Durham as well. So I've been doing prison ministry for over 20 years. But I saw where we were giving the people almost we were giving them false hope. We were really giving them false hope. We were telling them about Christ Jesus, but we weren't showing them how to live a responsible life before you even leave here. The reentry really begins when you are there. And so a lot of people do prison ministry and they want to send you straight to heaven, but these people are still living. I mean, of course, that's our goal, but before you die, you want to be able to live. And so, so doing prison ministry, I learned how to really listen to them rather than just talking at them and seeing what they needed and seeing where they want to go and giving them some hope and some aspiration and not just telling them, yeah, in the by and by, you're going to be all right. But what about before you get out and after you get out, what are you going to do?
Yeah, that's powerful. You have to make the change when you're still in that tough environment, kind of like James talked about, adjusting your mindset and making a decision. It strikes me how incredibly difficult that must be if I'm in prison and I'm not getting support. So I'm eating what they give me, and James talked about all these situations where violence happens, where, you don't have any good choices sometimes. I give you a lot of credit for your ministry. It would be incredibly difficult, I think, to give someone hope in some of those circumstances.
It can be, but when you are just consistent and you're there and you keep coming back and you keep coming back and you just keep showing them love and showing them avenues and showing them hope and most of all just being transparent.
And
go ahead, James.
Another thing too, Miss Morrison, you have like the levels of prison. Like a lot of times at green closed camps, you ain't gonna have a lot of that violence. On close custody, it gets violent. Minimum custody, it gets violent. But it's kind of like close custody, that's real violent. Minimum custody, it gets violent too. Then you have green closed. Now, if you're doing ministry there, most of the people about to get out, so it's kind of where you doing ministry right now. Because if you go in a close custody camp doing ministry, you better hope God with you, because you said the wrong thing. They might come at you with a shank. I mean, I'm laughing, but for real, because those guys in close custody might have 3 life sentences. You have to really be. They're really, yeah, you guys kind of So it's kind of what camp you're at when it comes to the ministry and different things like that too. You want to go in there sincere, but yeah.
Well, it sounds like y'all are just very agile and knowledgeable at dealing with men and sometimes women, it sounds like, in these situations. And there are just a lot of moving parts and a lot of strategies that that are life-saving and life-giving. And I really want to honor your work and thank you for your courage. We've got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything you want to say that you haven't said yet? A question I haven't asked?
All thing I would say is that obviously, we can't solicit, so we don't, but the program is coming to an end. If we cannot find a funder in September. So like I alluded to earlier, North Carolina spends about $52,000 a year on one individual for a year of incarceration on an average. Program costs about $300,000 to sustain it annually. We've already assisted over 167 people with their reentry at an 89% success clip. So we've saved North Carolina millions of dollars, and we only asked for 300,000. It's really a drop in the bucket when it comes to what the state budget is for reentry. For what I understand, this special projects is going to be sitting on about $38 million. We only need about what, 0.5% of that, and it's hard to try to find a funder that wants to continue. Everybody applauds the work that we're doing, and that's all good. But in order for us to really be able to really hit recidivism where it really hurts and really try to lower those rates, this has to be sustainable for the foreseeable future, at least another 10 years, in order for us to really be able to enact some kind of change and really put a dent in that revolving door of people going back and forth to prison, regardless of what they look like, regardless of whatever race they are, regardless of whatever sex they are, regardless of whatever religion they are. It doesn't matter. You see, we're very diverse. I have 2 individuals that are Christians and do ministry work, and I'm Muslim, but yet we still have that same overall desire to want to help everybody that we possibly can. At the end of the day, we're just people.
Exactly.
And we're just trying to help other people, but we need funding in order to do that, to continue doing what we're doing, because the overall mentality of the mind state is that 98% of the people that are incarcerated are going to have a release date. They're going to get out. So society only really has 2 choices. You either deal with them now while they're incarcerated, give them the support, give them the resources they need to be successful when they get out, or watch your back in the dark alley when you're walking down, because that person that just got released from prison has no food. They can't get food stamps because of their felony. They can't get housing because of their felony. They can't get a job because of their felony. And here you come walking down the street, you're food. So unfortunately, in order for us to change that jungle mentality of the hungry feeding on the less fortunate, we're gonna have to help these individuals before they get out. Like Wayne said, reentry starts as soon as you get entered. Once you have a release date, that time is your reentry time. Because if you try to do reentry successfully, once you get released, you're not going to be successful. You're already 10 miles behind the 8 ball, because society has changed so much when someone is incarcerated. So an area that they're familiar with might be completely different when they get released. And now they don't know where anything is anymore. Had they had a plan pre-release, they would have known that the building that you thought was there got demolished and now it's a parking lot, or they moved it 5 miles down the road or somewhere. These connections and these resources that we're giving these gentlemen are really life-changing for these guys. We have tremendous success stories of the guys that we're helping that are just doing phenomenal things with their life. And we have individuals that we've helped that are outside of our catchment area that are begging to please, can we go out there and help them? But because we just out of our catchment area, we can't. And a lot of rural areas don't have agencies like ours. And there are no resources for them in those rural areas. So we have to get this funding together. If we can get this funding together, we can keep this program going, expand it, maybe teach other agencies how to do this reentry thing I'm not gonna say the right way, I would say our way, and hopefully mimic this program. And if we can have this implemented and copied across the United States, you know, we can really do something with this prison population. But prison is $1 billion business. So there's gonna be some pushback from those individuals that are making millions and millions of dollars that don't want to see people not come to prison because they need them there to continue to collect that check. But it's a lifelong fight. It's a lifelong battle. I know I'm invested. I know the 2 guys with me are invested, because if they weren't invested as much as I am, they wouldn't be on my team. So we're going to keep doing everything that we can collectively, just the 3 of us. And just goes to show you, when you put a bunch of skilled individuals together that have different skill sets, because not all of us are great at everything. everybody does things differently and on a different level. But collectively, we all come together and we make this phenomenal team that's able to help as many people as we possibly can. So if we can find a funder that wants to help us, the agency does take donations. Even though we are federally funded, we do donations and we do grants. So if anyone seeing this broadcast knows about a funder that is interested in really, really wanting to help a program that works, then we're here.
That's the Alliance of Disability Advocates, North Carolina, Alliance of Disability Advocates, North Carolina. And we would love to support you. I want to circle back to your comments, but I also want to hear from James and Wayne before we wrap up.
Well, that was great what Mr. Brown said. That was everything in a nutshell from my perspective.
You know, the three of us, we are passionate about what we do, and that is what is needed. I've seen so many people come out with just a cookie cut, generic plan that hasn't worked. And so when you are able to get an individualized plan, on what you specifically want to do, and you have someone there to help you, it means it's worth all the money in the world. It really is.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. And I'll tell you, your energy and your passion and your, I don't know, you have a synergy as a team that's really powerful. Just talking with you tonight, it comes through loud and clear. And I'm very grateful to each of you for all that you're doing in the community, for your transparency and your courage, sharing your stories tonight. The last question, the Q&A, is from Gary. What can we do to help? I think maybe we should sit down and talk later after tonight's show. It is essential for this work to go forward. I'm quoting Gary in the chat again. We would love to be part of the solution for you. We definitely see the value of what you do. It's very much in line with the NAMI mission of elevating people with mental health challenges. We're big on community inclusion, and it's just such an important group to reach out to and right some of the wrongs of the past and right some of the wrongs that are still going on, and make recovery and wellness and dignity and respect a possibility for everyone. So thank you so much, each of you, for the honor and integrity you bring to your work and for all that you're doing. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Like I said, just thank you to you. Thank you to NAMI for allowing us to present. Obviously, thank you to my team. Thank you to Alliance of Disability Advocates. More importantly, thank you to the guys that were helping, because if they weren't invested in what they have going on, this wouldn't be successful either. So right. The success is theirs. It's not even ours. The success is theirs. We're just here to facilitate and here to help them. And obviously, Ms. Morrison, you can always email me if you want to have conversations about potential funding options and things like that. I'm here to speak to anybody at any time about reentry. My team is as well. If you ever need us to present again, send me an email. We'll come on here. We'll talk some more stuff.
I know, with barely a week's notice. For those of you who don't know, I closed last week's show by saying I have no idea who my next week's speaker will be, and these three gentlemen came through and produced, I think, one of the more powerful episodes that we've ever had. So thank you again. Thanks to everyone for being here with us tonight. And if you're out there, you're feeling alone, you're feeling othered, isolated, like people don't hear your voice and don't see the real you, please reach out to us at NAMI or the Alliance of Disability Advocates NC. We're here for you. We want to speak your language or help you find someone who can. And that's what we're about. So have a wonderful week, everyone. All right. Call us if you need to. We're here for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
All right.